Deep in the heart of the French countryside lies a seething danger concealed amidst the beauties of Burgundy. Hi, and welcome to the 4th round of the Missed Apex iRacing Championship as we head to France, where the menacing Magny-Cours awaits. From the horrifying hairpin to the challenging chicanes to the extravagance of the high-speed Estoril, drivers will have it all to do to keep their championship hopes alive. To get us underway today, please give a warm welcome to your special guest commentator, Stuffy!
Welcome everyone to this round of the Missed Apex Motorsport Championship. We are at the beautiful central France at the Magny-Cours Grand Prix circuit, a world famous circuit that used to hold the French Grand Prix in the F1. Michael Schumacher had a number of success here, so who is going to follow in his footsteps for the three races that we have this evening? As is customary this season, we have the three races with varying classes. The F4 car, which we'll be starting off with this evening, then heading up to the F3 car, and finally the most powerful of this evening's cars they'll be driving is the Super Formula. The Magny-Cours circuit is a difficult circuit and a very technical one that our drivers will have to navigate around this evening. It's going to be probably their biggest challenge this season to date. Plenty of sausage curbs, some off-cambered hairpins, plenty of opportunities for overtaking though, but also opportunities for spins like we are seeing from Mr. Dubbetsberger right on cue there. So our drivers need to be having their wits about them this evening. And at the moment, most people do seem to be, as we're in practice leading up to the first qualifying session, most drivers seem to be spending most time on the green and gravel stuff rather than the actual race circuit itself. So a little bit of an eyesight into what we can potentially expect this evening. But to start off with, we'll be starting in the least powerful of those three cars at the F4 car. But just because it is the least powerful doesn't mean that it provides subpar racing. No, not at all. It actually provides the closest racing you will see on the platform that is iRacing. So we'll stay on board with Tim Ellis here as we follow him round pretty much flat out first sector here, the first corner, and very much into the fast right-hander onto the very back straight, which heads into probably the first overtaking zone, which is the hairpin. At the moment, it is Danny Henney who is half a second ahead of Carl Power in P2. Alex Dubbetsberger close 10th behind him, 6 tenths behind Mr. Henney, and we have James Gill in P4. So those guys looking, of course, to capitalise on once again the unfortunate absence of our current overall leader, Brad Philpott, who is suffering from a few injuries from his exploits in real life in karting, as well as Mr. Van Gene as well. So we wish you guys the best recovery, and hopefully we'll see you in the next round. But we'll see who is going to come out on top this evening at this lovely circuit. I'm really excited for it. I've got a feeling it's going to be, we're going to see a few shocks here today. But Suzuka last time around was really exciting. My first commentating on the Missed Apex Championship, and I'm glad to be back here for the subsequent rounds. So Tim Ellis here going through the paces here into the one of the many hairpins that is at this circuit, and into that very pesky last chicane. You want to stay off those big sausage curbs here. Might not see much action into that last chicane with these small cars, but when it gets to the Super Formula, those curves will be very treacherous. But 14 minutes remaining until we head into qualifying. But let's have a look at last round's catch-up.
Season 8, Round 3 of Missed Apex iRacing kicked off with the FIA F4s at the Suzuka Grand Prix circuit.
Away we go, it's green, and we are heading down into the first corner there as Danny Henney has launched ahead of Carl Power down into the first corner.
Danny pulled a small gap, but it wasn't long before Kyle succumbed to pressure from Stephen Williams.
Steve Williams going for a move on Kyle Power here into the chicane, and I think Kyle here is now been forced out as Alex Dobbersberger is going to get the toe from Stephen Williams in front.
Behind the leaders, James Gill and Luke Power put on a masterful display of side-by-side racing as they swapped places multiple times in the battle for 5th and 6th places.
Luke is all over the back of James. Is he going to make a move up the inside, down into the hairpin? He does. He goes for that late move. Very aggressive there, but lovely to see it. These two have been fighting side by side and very cleanly all race, which is what you love to see. As they make contact there, they make contact. Luke Power just misjudging it slightly, moves over into James Gill's line.
Up the front, Danny Henny maintained his lead and took a comfortable win.
It has been a very good performance from him. Danny Henny wins the F4 race in P1. Stephen Williams comes across the line in P2 with Alex Dobbersberger rounding off the podium position.
Race 2 in the Dallara F3s saw Adrian Clark lead them away, but he was soon under pressure from behind.
And Adrian Clark has lost the position to Stephen Rubens there.
And on their first run through the hairpin, the dreaded Crash Fairies made an unwelcome return.
Oh, there's contact behind. Oh, it's Daniel Snortland, I think, who has made contact there with that yellow livery. It's absolute carnage.
When the dust settled, Tero Tyler took the lead from Daniel Snortland and Steve Rubens, but Rubens was immediately challenged by Spanners.
Spanners was looking at a move here. It's going to be a pretty routine move, and Spanners is now promoted himself up into P3. So
And 1 lap later, in exactly the same place, he did exactly the same thing and took another step forward.
Spanners slides up the inside here with the toe, gets the move done, and Spanners up into P2.
And then a couple of laps later, something very unexpected happened.
Spanners is all up behind Tero at the moment as he tucks to the inside. They move to the outside. This Spanners going to swoop round the outside here. Very aggressive, late on the brakes. Spanners, what a move into P1.
Spanners kept his head, kept the lead, and claimed his first ever Missed Apex iRacing victory.
Your host of the Missed Apex podcast, Spanners, is your winner.
It's fair to say he was a very happy podcast host.
Finally! 7 seasons before getting a win! Captain! What a race!
Race 3 started with trouble even before the first turn.
And it's away we go. And I think that's Luke Power who got very slow off the line. And it does look like that there was someone who went off as they head down into the first corner. And I think that's Adrian Clark. Not quite sure what happened there.
And it just seemed to go downhill from there.
It does seem like something has happened to Tero. He's lost it on the entry to the hairpin. And Luke Power and Stephen Williams there, it seems, had to take avoiding action over the gravel.
And just when you thought it couldn't go any further,
Got off at 130R. Who is that? It's our leader. It was our leader in this race. Oh my God.
but wait, there's more.
As we've lost someone at Logan Sargent's corner, could it be any more of an apt colour of light Williams blue?
And you know how I like to joke about Crash Fairies? Well,
We've lost Kyle at 130R. Kyle has lost it through 130R, chasing down. Oh no, he's done exactly what Jose has done.
after 14 laps of total carnage, it was Alex Smith who crossed the line for the win, leaving the others to pick up the pieces.
What a last round that was. Hopefully this evening lives up to round 3. And let's have a look at the classes. Platinum class, gold class here. We can see that Greg Gomez is leading by only 20 points from Alex Dobbersberger in P2, as well as James Gill and Stephen Williams on a tie for second place there. Count back only the positions that are separating them. Danny Henny following close behind those. So the top 5 there are very, very close with Luke and Carl Power trailing in 6th and 7th. In that gold class, we have Alex Smith with a slight comfortable lead. Then those in the platinum class at the moment over Sam Harper in P2. But Spurs, with his win in the F3 race last time out at Suzuka, is looking for a good performance and to close up to Smithy in P1. In our silver class, Dan Cook is in P1, 161 points, only 4 points separating him and Miguel in P2. Very close between those. But Sean Barnett and Alexandros, as well as Colton, who are also on the same points. That top 5, all looking for an opportunity to jump to the top of the standings here this evening at Magny-Cours. Overall, as previously mentioned, Mr. Philpotts is currently P1 with 270 points there. But with his absence again for the second round in a row, is going to lose that P1 most likely today, with Greg and Alex Doversberger and all of those in the top 10 eyeing up that P1 position. Smithy there in P10, head of the gold class, and we can see Dan Cook in 15th position at the head of the silver class. As previously mentioned, as Bradley Philpott, Alex Van Gien in 33rd will not be participating this evening either. So those guys all look to move up in the overall standings, as well as their overall within their respective categories. But the F4 race is only F4 qualifying is only a few minutes away. The open qualifying is going to be very interesting here today. As you said, there's lots of hairpins at Magny-Cours. As we see the track map here, we have that chicane at the end of the lap, just before the start-finish line. So anyone that makes a mistake here, and it's going to be very difficult for them with the amount of traffic that there is to get a decent lap time in. With the long back straight as well, the toe is going to be an element that comes into play here. We've seen drivers work something out and come to an agreement in the past, as we saw at Suzuka, with a certain agreement that they'll give the toe to each other to assist them with their qualifying position. In particular, I'm looking at you, the Power family, but that didn't necessarily work for them overall last time out. But we can see here Danny Henney, who's the top of our leaderboard at the moment, has in practice a comfortable lead, half a second above the two powers of Luke and Carl. We'll see if that maintains throughout qualifying. Maybe Danny, I haven't seen that exact lap, maybe he did get a toe, or maybe it's just pure outright pace. I'm sure he'll be giving me and tell me whether or not that was pure skill and talent alone after this session. But Danny, who is had a very good time out at Suzuka last time around. It was definitely a round of redemption for him after a very poor showing at the Charlotte Roval. So with Bradley Philpott's absence and with Greg Gomez as well, these drivers, the likes of Danny, Carl and Luke and Alex Doversberger and James Gill will be looking to capitalise on those absences and make their way up their leaderboards and the overall standings. There's another driver off the circuit there, and you can see Carl. Oh, that's exactly what I was talking about earlier. That last chicane is pesky indeed. Very, very large sausage curves there, some of the largest on the platform. And to get the quickest lap time possible, you do need to attack those curves, but that is the risk you run, is that you throw the car off of balance and the car goes round on you. I can speak from experience in a number of series at this circuit how big and pesky that last chicane is, as Carl just found out. But this circuit, it's not just that last chicane. The hairpins, some of them are off camber, late apexes, getting on throttle too early can just run you out of road surface. As we've already seen in this practice session, a number of drivers are finding that out as they're just trying to find out the limits of this car and this track. So let's have a look at this track in further detail as Spanners takes us around a lap at Magny-Cours.
Hey guys, Spanners here. Welcome to Magny-Cours. Magny-Cours. We're saying the same thing. Welcome to the racetrack in France where Formula One used to go. It's a track that I have by no means mastered, but let's take a tour around this now unfamiliar backwater of Formula One history. Well, it's unfamiliar if you're young, which I am. Anyway, let's cross the line for a lap. If you look on the right-hand side, there's runoff area that you can use to open up turn 1. It will definitely be flat out here in all 3 cars. Take a nibble out of turn 2, lose a little bit of speed, because turn 3 wants you to go flat out, but you can't quite do it. So you need to lose a little bit of speed on entry to make sure you're all the way on the exit of turn 3's curves. Now you've got a long straight here and a kink to the right that's leading down to turn 5, which is the heaviest braking zone on the track. All about finding that bite point, getting down the gears and taking off as much speed as you can, as late as you can. It's a mid-entry apex and you can use all of that runoff on the exit. Here's a real challenging sequence. It's a chicane, into a kink, into a hairpin. It's an opening chicane, so not one I want to get banned. But here you have to lose speed before you even start the entry to this hairpin because it's offset to the left. Hug it around. It's a really difficult line to get right and lots of opportunity for racing and overtaking. Now we go into the second chicane. It is an opening chicane as well, maybe more of an S. I don't know. But you basically treat it like one, pick your braking point and then accelerate straight through the second part of that heavy-ish braking zone into a 90-degree right-hander that then continued going off to the right. It is an earlier apex, but when you think the exit's done, it just keeps tightening up on you and it just isn't over. Now into the final complex of this track. It's really tricky. This is faster than you think, but then you immediately have to be thinking about the final chicane. This is one of the chicanes I'd like to get banned, not just because I lose about 5/10 to the rest of the field. That's a coincidence, but there's your lap. Do I have faith that I know the fastest way around that track? Absolutely not. It's all about feel, skill, and a bunch of other stuff I don't have. This is a track that is going to suit the better drivers better. Point and squirt, it is not.
Thank you, Spanners, for that great track guide there. I'm still not sure how you pronounce this track as well, as we see another car off circuit there as we went and rejoined the practice session. Only a couple of minutes to go until this qualifying session, and within that track guide provided by Spanners, we have Luke Power has reduced that gap down from half a second to 3/10 to Danny Henney. As we said, still not sure if that was toe assisted or if that's just pure speed and talent. I'm sure Danny will tell me it's speed and talent, but with the back straight being very long, the toe is powerful here. So as previously mentioned, getting the toe can be the difference potentially between a driver gaining a number of positions or not. And I think that's going to be essential when it comes to pole position here. But our top 5 in the Platinum class, all eyeing for an opportunity to head to the top of the overall standings as well, as the Platinum are our top 5 fastest drivers. So it's really panning out to be a great evening of racing, guys. Firstly starting in the F4 class, heading into the F3 and then into the Super Formula. 3 very different challenges around this very technical circuit, as Spanners track guide displayed. A number of sausage curves to be careful of as well, and in particular I'm intrigued to see how these drivers handle the Super Formula car, which is the last race of this evening. With the amount of hairpins on this circuit and the chicanes, need to be careful about riding those curves, and of course being careful on that throttle with that extra torque and power that the Super Formula provides. I do predict, unfortunately, plenty of spins from these drivers just because of how easy the F4 and F3 is on throttle compared to that car. But let's keep an eye out on Jose here as he heads through that chicane. It was nice for him, but now we're on board with John though. Let's stay on board with John as he heads down into the one of the many hairpins on this circuit as he heads into the chicane there. Nice and comfortable from him, not like Carl Power early on where he attacked that curb. It is the risk you take, and it's a nice full throttle swoop in first sector. Lovely, one of the best sectors in the world, I think, in an open wheel car, downforce car personally, all the way down into the last hairpin. let's head into the all-important open qualifying, which will set the grid for our first race this evening. Then there will be top 20 reverse grid in the second race, and likewise, that will be the case in the third race also. There's plenty of drivers wasting no opportunity to head out there and get a lap in as quick as possible. Traffic can be essential here, and how you deal with that, of course, with the hairpins, with the amount of pins we've seen already and off tracks from those drivers in practice session. Getting out there and getting a clean lap is going to be important, as well as positioning yourself for, of course, the toe, as Danny Henny is tucked up there, or no, wants to take the initiative and get out ahead of one of the of Smithy there, I believe that is, and take the initiative. He's not so worried about a toe. He's relying on his talent and skill. But off tracks here also, there's a number of curves here that are very inviting for you to take over, as we just saw the drivers go through the S's there, and that can also void your qualifying lap. But just approaching the 8.5 minute mark, these drivers are probably going to get around 3 laps of clean qualifying in. So as Danny comes through the middle S's sector into the second to last chicane, let's see how they handle it, who is going to be on our pole position by the end of this qualifying. Danny Henny is in the ascendancies, out there up front, feeling confident and comfortable, fastest in free practice. And here we go into the last chicane. So let's follow Danny as he actually goes very wide, even onto the grass to start his flying lap. I wonder if that would have slowed him down there, as it's full throttle all the way through the first sector. Left-hander, then sweeps to the right, and we've got a very long right-hander here, and you need to make sure that you get this exit correct and that corner in general, because you could lose speed all the way down this very long back straight into the hard braking zone of turn 5. Just a hairpin here. Stay on board with him as he gets on the brakes there, hits the apex nicely, straight back on throttle. Doesn't run out too wide to pick up an off track, stays within the track limits. He now heads to the inviting middle chicane here. Very easy to pick up an off track. Let's see how much he takes. Oh, very, very close there. And I think he's gone outside of track limits there on the exit of the chicane. And it wouldn't surprise me if that has shown up as an unfortunate off-track incident. That is the risk that you run. We'll see as he crosses the finish line if that was indeed a track limits violation, but not a good start for Danny as he's pushing to get that banker lap in, and he'll have to go again. He's still pushing, he's not slowing down by any means with the pack closely behind, but that is the risk that you run with those middle chicanes, cutting too much of the middle corner there and just run out too wide, and you can see all 4 wheels, unless the rear wheel did stay within bounds. Heads through the last corner into the chicane, and we'll see if this actually registers as a lap. And Danny Henny was fortunate, very fortunate, cutting it very, very fine there to get a lap, but he's 4 tenths down on Carl Power, who's currently on our provisional pole, so he must have kept a rear tyre within track limits, but it did look from that on-board position that he was outside of track limits. But Danny Henny needs to pull something out of the bag here if he wants to close down that gap on Carl Power. I'm not entirely sure if Carl got the benefit of the tow potentially from Smithy in front, who is at the top of the gold class. He is tucked up close behind Henny up front. So Carl Power there in P1, currently from Smithy, who is your gold class leader in P2. James Gill in P3, Henny 4th, Jose in 5th, Steve Williams in 6th, and interestingly Carl down in 11th, Luke Power in 11th, potentially made a mistake there, 1.6 seconds down, very easy to do at this circuit, and Alex Douglasberger also 1.8 seconds down in 15th. Maybe they came across some traffic which just impeded their laps slightly. But Cole Power currently in P1 as we're on our second flying lap here of this open qualifying session. So heads through that middle chicane there, nice within the track limits. See the rear wiggling about just a little bit as all the weight was on the side of the car there. On board with James, very nice and tidy through there, very close to that sausage curb, as close as you want to take it without actually getting on top of it. Easily throw off these very lowly run behind these open wheel cars. Sausage curbs are very perilous here as we join on board with James down into the last hairpin, which quickly turns into a right-left of that last chicane, close to those sausage curbs, and James Gill sets a good lap there from him. He does improve and moves up into P4, but Danny Henney last time around closes that gap on Cole Power by 700ths of a second, and Luke Power also 900ths of a second. The top three are separated by less than 1/10. This is really close as they're heading into their third flying lap now with the tyres heating up and the fuel burning off. Lap times are only getting quicker. So Danny Henney improving there. Luke Power, great time from him, and he's not getting the benefit of a tow, I believe, either. He just seems to be a little bit too far back from those cars in front, so not even draft assisted. We'll see if, a bit of a wiggle under braking there as he headed into that chicane, really braking late. Avoided the lockup, it seems, but on the limit for sure these drivers are right now. Luke heads through the middle chicane here where we saw Danny Henney nearly get an off track, really pushing the track limits here, and it seems that Luke is going a bit slowly, it seemed, a bit through that middle sector, lifted off slightly. Maybe he lost a bit of time. We'll see if he crosses the finish line, but we can go on board with Alex Dorbertsberger, who's 4 tenths behind. Not what we're expecting, normally used to seeing with Alex in qualifying. He would be expecting to be more in front as they passed a spinner there. I'm not quite sure who that was, and Alex spins right on cue here through that chicane, chasing the time that he needs to close up to the top three, and he just takes too much of the chicane there, of that curb, and I've got a feeling that is going to be something I am going to be saying on repeat throughout the course of this evening, because it is very treacherous through there, but that is where the time is as these drivers are pushing as we come to the end of this qualifying session. Perhaps the spinner who he had to pass, I think that was, looked like, was it the red car of Danny Henney who actually spun? It was indeed, yes. Danny Henney is behind Alex Dorbertsberger, so Dorbertsberger and Danny Henney both spun coming in the last out of the last hairpin there, Danny Henney, and maybe that potentially put off Dorbertsberger into the chicane. So not great for those two, as Carl Power did improve last time around and is 1.5 tenths nearly ahead of Danny in P2. So Carl looking good for pole position at the moment, but we still have another lap or so until this qualifying session is over and done with. But Carl here, as we follow him through the middle chicane, comes down into the second to last hairpin. Really seems to be managing the weight shift of that car through the fast right and left of the chicanes very well than some others that we've seen this evening thus far. Down into the hairpin where Danny Henney lost, needs to be late on the brakes here, but patient on the throttle. Looked like he just rode the curb there. How is he through the chicane? And he's taking it very well at the moment. Does he increase his gap? He doesn't. He actually loses it to Smithy, who is... Oh, and what's Carl done there? He's turned in too early, taking his eye off the ball, and that's definitely a lap that he's not going to improve on for Carl Power. But Smithy tucked up behind Carl Power there on that last lap, getting the tow. We emphasised how important it was going to be here at this circuit. Has jumped ahead of Carl Power in the gold standings, leading not only his own standings at the moment, but he's currently on provisional pole for the first race of this evening, with his current nearest rival, Mark Greenhow, in gold in 7th position. So what a performance this is from Smithy at the moment. Luke Power also goes ahead of his uncle into P2 there. 200ths of a second, less than 500ths of a second separating Luke and Carl Power from P1. That is Alex Smithy at the moment, as another driver behind Luke pulls off to the side there, or has a wobble out of the hairpin. But let's keep an eye on Luke. We're heading to the end, only 30 seconds left now of this open qualifying session, and let's see how Luke can the powers. Well, we know Carl isn't going to be improving, that is for sure, after he's off at the first corner. Luke here has an opportunity to get pole position. He had pole position in the first race in Suzuka last time out, but couldn't convert it. had a couple of good starting grid positions, so he'll be looking for redemption this time around here at Magny-Cours. He heads out the second to last hairpin. Looks good there within track limits, that is for sure. But it's all about full attack here, out of the last hairpin into that chicane. But of course, you don't want to take it too aggressively, because we've seen the likes of Alex Dovesberger already lose control, and that was very well taken by Luke. Has he improved here as he crosses the start-finish line? Is he able to get into pole position? No, he's not. He's not. He's just a tenth slower than his previous lap, and that indicates how important the toe is here, as it is Smithy on provisional pole. Danny Henny, the top 4 separated by less than 0.05 of a second. That is our closest qualifying that we have had in the Missed Apex Championship for some time, most definitely this season, with James Gill currently in P5, Stephen Williams in P6, Mark Greenhow in P7. To put this in perspective for you guys, there is only 6 attempts covering the top 10 here, with the top 5 separated by less than 3 attempts, with the top 4 though separated by less than 0.05 of a second. That is unbelievable. But Smithy in the gold class is on pole position for our first race this evening. A great potential here for Smithy to score a number of points and increase his lead in the Gold Championship standings, and increase his position in the overall standings as well of those in the Platinum class. Wow, wow, wow. It just showed how important the toe was here. Carl Power, how much he maybe ruined that mistake in the first corner, as he could have potentially got an extra lap and got into pole position. But I did not expect at the start of this evening that we would have as much of an interesting qualifying that we just had there. So, as the drivers are gridding, let's have a look at our confirmed grid for the first race this evening in the F4 class. So on pole position is Alex Smith, Luke Power in P2, Danny Henny P3, Carl Power 4th, James Gill 5th, Stephen Williams 6th, Mark Greenhouse 7th, Daniel Cook 8th, Alex Dovesberger 9th, Tim Ellis 10th, Jose in 11th, Colin Ward in 12th, Andrew Sexton in 13th, John in 14th, Sean in 15th, Terry Tyler in 16th, Frick in 17th, we have Alexandros in 18th. And in 19th position, we have Spanners, Tom Jenkinson in 20th, Steve Rubins in 21st, Nick Alexander 22nd, Edvend in 23rd, Mike Stoner in 24th, Daniel Snortonen in 25th, and Trumpets bringing up the rear here in 26th. So only moments away from the first race of this evening. First of 3 in the F4 class. Remember, top 20 are reverse grids. So an opportunity for those guys at the back to make their way up the grid for the second race. Waiting for the last few remaining here. Who is going to win the first race of this evening? Is Smithy going to be able to capitalize on that tremendous pole position that he just secured himself? Will Luke Power be able to get himself a much better start than he did last time out at Suzuka? Let's see. Drivers waiting for drivers to grid up here. Lights out is only moments away. 3 more remaining. Danny Henny also looking for a good capture of points here, and Carl Power also tucked up behind Luke Power as lights are on. 4 lights, 5 lights. It is lights out, green, and we're away we go, as it's a good start there from Luke Power as he moves over to cover off Danny Henny, who's looking to sweep on the outside here of Luke Power, as well as Carl on the inside. Needs to be careful not to poke a nose in, otherwise he'll turn his nephew around. But that's a great start from Danny Henny. We'll be looking at the back here of Alex Smithy, but Smithy, great start as he got off the line there, maintains first position, but it's a very long run down into turn 5 here, the back straight. But Danny needs to be looking more into his mirrors here as he goes defensive to Luke Power, who's looking to regain that second position under braking, and Oh, it's very close there. I think there might have been a touch of wheels as Luke Power regains second position, and Kyle Power has to look on his outside as well as he's under attack, but holds off just for now as they're going side by side through the chicane as Danny Henney submits that position, but Kyle Power holds off James Gill there. But a great start for Smithy as he's just got a slight gap, half a second on Luke Power as Luke lost that second position to Danny, but then regained it down into turn 5. But thus far, thankfully for everyone, we are clean and everyone is still running. As we head through the middle chicane here, we're on board with James Gill, who just went side by side and eyed up Carl as he goes defensive into the chicane there from James, and this may allow him a better, straighter exit as they head down into the penultimate corner. As we head into this hairpin, into that last chicane, we'll see if anyone is going to be aggressive over a bit. We've already seen those. James Gill eyeing up the outside of Carl there, but has no room through that last chicane, and the top 5 all get through it, as do the pack behind. No one seems to be spinning around, thankfully. We'll probably see, unfortunately, a victim there at some point, like we did in practice and in qualifying. It's definitely a corner, but if a lot of time wants to be made up, you have to be aggressive, as Smithy now leading for the first lap. Needs to be keeping an eye out in his mirrors with this very long back straight, as we've mentioned, as Luke Power, look at the toe in this F4 car, has to go to the outside. Is he going to be able to hold it on the outside here, though here? No, he's not, but he also needs to be careful with Danny Henney, who gets a nice exit, hits the apex. He's going to be thinking about holding it on the outside of this chicane, but no, just doesn't quite have the drive in this F4 car, lacking a little bit of torque compared to that of the F3 and the Super Formula, but we'll see later on this evening. But Smithy having to go defensive and fight hard here as Luke is hounding him, but Luke also needs to be careful with his rear view mirrors because Danny Henney will be looking to capitalise at any point in time. But Luke does get put out of position. This track is quite easier to defend from. The main overtaking opportunity will be down into turn 5, so Luke eyeing up, positioning himself here. Smithy goes defensive again, and Luke has to stamp the brakes on there as Smithy on the suboptimal line out of the hairpin just doesn't get the drive, as Luke now has a move, but Smithy goes defensive. Has he left him room? Moves out to open up his exit through the last hairpin. They're going to go side by side through this chicane. Is there room for both of them? There is, as Danny Henney is now looking to capitalise on that moment, as well as Carl Powell. We have 4 of them, nose to nose, 5 of them nose to nose as they head into the first corner here, as Danny Henney has gone from 3rd place to 1st in a couple of corners. He bided his time as Luke touches wheels with Carl as they head down to turn 5 once again, as all this is done is bring the pack together. Look at the top 7 there, all close together, the top 10 even, as Smithy is now going to be looking at Danny Henney to regain that position, as Danny goes very, very tight to the inside line to cover off any potential overtaking opportunity as he gets the exit, as Carl now gets ahead of Luke, and Luke was eyeing up P1 half a lap ago, is now down into 4th position, so it hasn't been a good half a lap for him. Look at the top 5 here, separated by only a car's length each. Hardly anything to separate them, as a little bit of a lock-up behind there. Danny Henney goes a little bit wide, not the greatest exit for him, as Luke is looking to regain that position on his uncle Carl, but he just lost only a few corners ago. We'll see if anyone makes an opportunity down into the penultimate hairpin here. Not really an overtaking opportunity through that chicane. More about positioning yourself, car ahead under pressure as we go on board with Luke, who's just lost a little bit of ground to Carl ahead, but like Danny Henney last lap out, could be in a great position to capitalise on any potential fighting up ahead. But it does seem to be that everyone has got through that last corner and the chicane safely, as we are only heading into the 4th lap of this race, and we've already had so much action, and that's what this track and this car can provide. While the F4 is the slowest that we will see this evening, it does provide, in some instances, the best racing that you will see of any series on the platform. So here we go, turn 5 once again. Danny Henney has built up a little bit of a gap to Alex, so he won't have to worry about looking in his rearview mirrors so much, as we go on board with Tero Tylis, who is eyeing up an overtake on Tom Jenkins in P15. see if he can make it. Tom looking to go defensive, but looks in his rearview mirrors and understands that Taro is not close enough to him. As Spanners is under attack from Daniel Snortland, who started down the back of the pack after an unfortunate penalty after his outings in Suzuka. So Spanners there on the edge of the track limits through the chicane. You can see all four wheels were outside the white lines, potential off track for him. Drivers need to be careful of that today in these races as well. Snortland's on board with him now, eyeing up the back of your missed Apex host. Let's see if he can stay tight through this middle chicane here. As Spanners misses the Apex, unfortunately, and is a little bit out of position, and you can see the gap close quite significantly there, as Daniel was just a lot more tidy through that section. Let's head back up to the leaders as Carl Power is down in 4th position. He's lost that position back from Luke, who is now eyeing up regaining his starting place of 2nd. And Carl, very quickly, while he's looking ahead, also needs to look behind him, because I'm not sure if he's quite close enough to Luke to get benefit from the tow, as that's a great exit from James Gill here. Let's see if Carl goes defensive. I assume he will have to. As we go on board with James, he is gaining, he's gaining, but he might not have enough down into this hairpin. Is he going to brake late? No, just positions himself as Luke is looking up the inside. Oh, and they've made contact. And unfortunately, Luke there doesn't quite execute the overtake through the hairpin, snags Smithy's front wheel, and that's a real shame for Smithy, who was on pole position, but that is massively beneficial to Danny Henney, who will be looking in his rearview mirrors and will now see the luminous green livery of Carl Power nearly 2 seconds behind, rather than that of Luke and Smithy, only half a second. Let's have a look. Unfortunately, no replay to look at that at the moment. I'm sure we'll get it in a second, but really unfortunate there. But James Gill has just gained 2 positions while eyeing up Carl Power. So that is the nature of this circuit. Really unfortunate for Luke and for Smithy there. Just one of those things. James Gill will be eyeing up Carl now as they head into the last that last chicane. Being very nice and careful with it, not as aggressive as they were in qualifying. So our grid, our positions at the moment is Danny Henney in P1, 1.7 seconds from Carl Power after that tangle with Smithy and Luke. James Gill he's been promoted to P3 with Carl Power just ahead of him. He'll be eyeing up Carl here, who doesn't have the benefit of a tow in front of him, but will be vulnerable down into the hairpin of turn 5. Stephen Williams in P4, Smithy in P5, still going. Not sure if he has any damage from that contact from Luke Power, as Daniel Cook in the silver class, leading it quite comfortably, up 6 positions. Is, well, actually just overtaken Smithy up into P5, so I wonder if that was genuine. Oh, no, and Daniel Cook's lost a position to Alex Dubbersberger there with an potential overtake on Alex Smith. That is how close the racing is here. Alex Dubbersberger up into P6, eyeing up Smithy. Can't quite tell on the visuals there if Smithy does have any damage. It doesn't seem to look like it. These F4 cars are pretty sturdy, with Daniel Cook in P7, Tim Ellis in P8. Luke Power after that contact with Smithy is up down into P9. Joseph in P10, Colin in P11, John in P12, and he is very close throughout the whole grid here. I think it looks like the largest gap on this grid at the moment, or on the track, is Danny Henney up in P1, 1.5 seconds or 1.6 seconds ahead of Carl Power. James Gill is trying to chase him down, just cannot gain at the moment. As we go on board with Smithy here, he is trying to chase down Stephen Williams. He's still going, seems to be that he's got away. His front right wing, yep, the front right end plate seems to still be intact. So very, oh no, does look like, I can't quite tell, as the car was very loaded there, if that was just the load of the car or if his front wing is damaged or not. It does look like it's slightly bent in, unfortunately, the front right side of it, so he might be losing some top speed down that back straight as Alex Dubbersberger reels him into that T5 hairpin. That might be the only place where he's losing time should affect the aero too much. So unfortunately for Smithy, just slightly getting a negative effect from that contact. But he is still in P5 and has an opportunity with half of the laps remaining here. 7 laps remaining to score some decent points. He is still 6 positions ahead of the nearest gold class position, Colin, down in P11. That's what Alex really needs to focus on right now. Alex, but there's Danny Henny is still 1.4 seconds ahead of Carl Power now. So Carl Power chipping away slightly at that lead of Danny Henny, so it's not quite comfortable. 7 laps remaining after this, so we'll see if Danny will be able to hold on to this position. As we've seen, overtaking, catching is one thing, overtaking is another, but it's still Danny Henny leading from Carl Power, James Gill in P3, Stephen Williams 4th, and Smithy in 5th. Dosberger closing him down though, and Alex will definitely be looking in his rearview mirror pretty quickly. But just seems to be that Danny has the better first sector than Carl, but Carl pegs him back in the last sector at the moment as the field spread is starting to be seen throughout. It was very close for the first half of this race, but as we've seen with this circuit, the curbs can bite you, the corners can bite you very, very quickly, and things can change in an instant. But an overtake there from Alex Dovesberger on Alex Smith. And Alex in P6 now, a simple overtake down into the T5 hairpin. But Alex in the tow is no slouch, it seems, even with that slight damage to his front right wing. Let's see if he's going to be able to come back at Alex. But Alex Smith needs to be careful, as he does have Daniel Cook of the Silver Class, lead Silver Class, all over the back of him. And if he gets put out of position, he can very quickly lose even more, with Tim Ellis and Luke Power and Jose very close behind. Let's see how they handle this as they head into the... Oh, very, very close there. Daniel got to Alex Smith. Very, very good exit from him. Didn't look like Smithy went defensive either as they head into the hairpin. He's going to have a look down into the hairpin here. He's definitely poking his nose, trying to force Smithy into a mistake, but Smithy more focused ahead than he is looking behind as they head through that chicane. Very aggressive there and seems to have got a better exit. So I wonder if he'll have an opportunity down into the turn 3 corner, or will he just bide his time and make short work of him down into turn 5. You can see the wash of the car just moving out to the left. Maybe that's that damage just coming into play here as he's very close and tucked up behind, 2 tenths behind. Let's see how quickly he gains, even with Smithy in the tow of Dovesberger in front. But it looks like even Daniel Cook has a bit of front nose damage there as it's quite scuffed. I'm not sure if that's the livery as they banged wheels and it got very, very close there between them. I don't think Smithy could be any far over, and Daniel just slightly misjudging it there, but you can see he's lost the position from that slight mistake to Tim Ellis and could potentially lose it from Luke Power, who's all over the back of him now. So this is the nature of this circuit. You really need to make the move stick, because otherwise, if you don't, you get out of position, you could end up, rather than gaining one, lose more than just the one that he was trying to gain. Lose multiple, as Luke is now eyeing up Daniel as they head into the turn 14 hairpin. Very, very nicely done there, and he's going to go for the move up the inside, late on the brakes. He gets it done, and then for the second time this race, Luke Power misjudges it, slightly gets up on the curb and bounces into Daniel Cook here. Oh, very unfortunate there. Daniel, could he have left a slightly little bit more room? Potentially. I would call that mostly a racing incident, but definitely these sausage curbs through these hairpins are very, very severe. You need to be careful. Leave the room, and well, Carl for this, Luke, sorry, for the second time this race, making an overtake through a hairpin, has made contact with the other car, and that has demoted Luke down into P11 after he started second on the grid. So as Danny Henny is continuing to increase this gap, it looked like Carl was closing the gap on Danny, but Danny, maybe he was just trying to entice Carl and give him a little bit of false hope as he's now 2.5 seconds ahead. James Gill still in P3. Stephen Williams up into P4. He's got a comfortable lead over Alex Dobbsberger at the moment with 4 laps remaining. But there is still that potential, that treacherous curbs that we've seen already, but this circuit can bite. If you make an overtake, it can just end very poorly for you very quickly, as we've seen with Luke Powell already. Alex Smithy in P6 after that contact with Luke, going quite nicely for him, being able to hold on Tim Ellis at the moment. So still a good result for him if he's able to hold off Tim Ellis behind. It does look like he's staying with Alex Dobbsberger quite comfortably and may even be looking at an overtake with that clearly damaged front wing. So we'll see how his progression occurs. But Stephen Williams was chasing down James Gill, it seems, 6 attempts behind, as James has lost a toe to Carl Power in front. One just over a second behind Carl Power. He won't really be getting the benefit of the toe there. So he will be vulnerable to Stephen Williams. As Stephen Williams, you can see the interval there. Stephen Williams half a second behind James and seems to be gaining and gaining. So there could be a potential of a fight here in the closing stages of this race for the last podium position. As we can see, that interval is just closing. Stephen a little bit too far back there, and wishful thinking as he goes a little bit deep and misses his braking marker there. Very fortunate not to run into the back of James Gill. Got a bit smart trying to show his nose and force James into a mistake, but nearly made the mistake himself. But you can see hasn't really any kind of gain that he was making on James. His gap is now under 4 tenths, just over 3 tenths here, and he'll be gaining down into this hairpin through the middle chicane. We've seen drivers try to attempt an overtake here. Some make it stick, some others not. It's full throttle. It's all about whether or not you're able to control the weight balance of this car through that chicane and then under braking into that last hairpin. And look at that, just over 2 tenths to James Gill now, but needs to be careful not to run into the back of him. Of course, when you get very, very close in these cars, you can misjudge you. Sometimes being too close is not the best thing, because you can misjudge your braking marker. And it seems to be that's exactly what Stephen Williams has done. Is he's gone from 2 tenths behind to now 5 tenths behind, where he was probably better potentially waiting, biding his time and staying close to get that simple overtake, you would think, down into T5. But it does seem that he's just again on the exit there through turn 3 as we join Alex Smithy, who is with that damaged front wing. I'm really surprised he is doing so well. Great job from him after that contact with Luke Power earlier on, as he is gaining on Alex Dobbsberger, who may have damage himself. I'm not entirely sure, but I do think that damage is affecting his top speed and probably limiting the amount of gain he can get. If he had a clean car, he probably would have overtaken Dobbsberger. But Tim Ellis now looking to gain on Alex as he's all over the back of him. As there's a car off the circuit there. Wow. Car off the circuit there. Mark Greenhow just getting out of the way of all of the drivers. Sensible thing to do. Just lapped here. Unfortunately, Mark not having the best of times, it seems, and sensible decisions as to get off of the circuit and let these drivers through. As Alex has lost a little bit of time to Dobbsberger in front there, and Tim Ellis is with the great traction out of the hairpin, looking for a potential overtake. Is he going to make the same mistake that Stephen Williams did and get too close, go too deep and lose the time that he's gained? No, very sensible exit from him, and he should be able to stay very close here. Tucked up, you can see not a lot separating them. 2.5 tenths, putting just slightly outside of the slipstream there, not to get too close through this first sector, as he wants to line up his position for a good exit through turn 3 all the way down into the hairpin. And you would think this is a formality with the unfortunate damage that Alex Smith does have. Let's see how close and how Tim is going to potentially make this stick, as Alex goes very defensive on the inside. It's the only thing that he can do. Does Tim have the gains here late on the brakes? tries to stick it round the outside, and he doesn't. He just runs out of room, and that's a great defence there from Smithy. The only thing that he could do, fair and respectful, leaving Tim the cards width that he requires there as they went side by side into that hairpin, and Tim not gaining as much as we first anticipated there. Smithy putting up a valiant effort to hold on to his 6th position and to gain his all-important points that he needs to increase his lead on the gold class at the moment. So Danny Henny, with 2 laps remaining, is P1, 1.8 seconds, just under 2 seconds ahead of Carl Power in cruise control. Doesn't need to push too much out of this car, as Carl, the top 2, have pulled out a gap on James Gill behind, who is more so looking in his rearview mirrors at Stephen Williams, who is only 2 tenths behind James here, with only a lap to go here. Let's see if James Gill is going to be able to hold off the charging Steve Williams, who does seem to be a little bit more patient this time around, and is 3 tenths behind James Gill as they head on to the final lap. Is he going to be able to have an opportunity down into that back straight into turn 5? And he keeps it very tight here, and not the wide line and straighten out the exit that we've seen from other drivers and like James in front. And it seems to have done the trick, as it's very much closed up the gap. And Stephen Williams here, with that extra grip and that tighter line, is going to have an opportunity to go side by side for this last podium position down into turn 3. James is in the ascendancy at the moment, slightly ahead, but James not as aggressive. Oh, and he is aggressive on the brakes. He looked like he brakes a little bit too early as Stephen tries to do the cutback. And this isn't over by any means, as Steve tucks up close behind as they head through the middle chicane with half a lap remaining. Steve shows his nose. They're going side by side. James leaves him room. May have picked up an off track there as we head into the hairpin, a very late apex here. Is Steve going to swoop round the outside with the extra grip here in this F4 car? This is a dramatic end to this F4 race for the last podium position, and Alex Doversberger is closing up the gap while these 2 are going side by side, and they're still side by side. As Stephen has a big wiggle there, as James Gill, and he's now under attack from Alex Doversberger, who's iron at P4, and Smithy wants to get involved as well and nearly runs into the back of him, and Tim Ellis Tim Ellis runs into the back of Smithy. No, it seems to be that they're still going. I think Smithy has lost the position to Daniel Cook, and no, Smithy is falling down the order there. A real shame for him, as he was so valiant in his defence, and that, unfortunately, for Smithy is not the end that he wants, finishing only 1 position ahead of his next. Seems like he's been promoted to 7th. It seems the grid is changing. I'm not sure. We'll finish 10th. We'll get the final grid order, final finish position shortly. But dramatic end to this first race of this evening. Danny Henny, a comfortable win for him. He had to fight hard for it at the start. Not the best qualifying position for him, but starting 3rd place. 4th place, sorry. He ended up finishing in P1, and it was comfortable for him, finishing ahead of Carl Power. Let's have a word with our first race winner this evening. Mr. Henny, how was that?
That was good. Yeah, qualifying didn't go to plan. I spun on my lap what would have been pole, so that put me back a little bit, but yeah, it was a good race. A bit nervous at the start, being with in the pack a little bit, because I knew the hairpin would be a bit chaotic. I didn't really see what went on, but I imagine someone went into the side of someone. But yeah, it was good. Kyle pushed me really hard. I had to put a bit of a sprint on mid-race to open the gap up, and then I could go back to managing it a little back to the end. But yeah, solid race, solid points.
Yeah, definitely took advantage of the fighting ahead of you, and it did look like Kyle was catching you up at a point, but then he seemed to put on the afterburners and push that gap out to a comfortable position. So a good start to the night, mate, and with 2 more races remaining, let's see how you go.
Yeah, thanks, Stuffy. See you later.
Cheers, bud. So what a dramatic end to that first race. Definitely an intriguing start to this race, and then, well, the end was very, very dramatic as we have the final results here. Danny Henny in P1, as we just confirmed. Carl Power in P2. James Gill holding off Stephen Williams there at the end. A great charge from Stephen in P4. Alex Doversberger in P5, nearly capitalising on that tangle between James and Stephen. And then Tim Ellis, who I'm sure will be apologising to Smithy, but he was just very close racing there at the end, as there was a very big concertina effect and tagged Smithy, who ended up finishing in P10. Daniel Cook, a great win for him in getting some all-important points over his silver class competitors in P7. Jose in 8th. Luke Power, unfortunately, not a great start of the evening for him after he qualified on the front row down in P9 with his tangle with Alex. And later on into the another hairpin as well. Smithy, a real unfortunate performance from him there. Still finishes in the top 10, but could have been so much better for him, but no fault of his own. Colin Ward in P11, John Cox 12th, Terrace Hollis in 13th, Frick in 14th, Tom in 15th, Andrew Sexton in 16th, Steve Rubens in 17th, Alexandros in 18th. And rounding off, we have Mike Stoner in 19th, Nick Alexander, who will be pole position for the next race with the reverse grid in 20th, Edwin in 21st, Daniel Snorton in 22nd, and your two hosts of the Missed Apex not having the best start of this evening in 23rd and 24th, Mark Greenhow in 25th, and Sean Bennett in 26th. So that is the first race of this evening underway. We now head into the reverse grid of the F3 race. It was a dramatic end. I know I've repeated myself, but what a dramatic end it was. Let's hope the F3 race is just as eventful. We'll be back for it shortly.